Hello, everybody. In this video for the Economics and Politics unit, we're going to be looking at two different economic systems and then a third, which is sort of a hybrid of the two of them. The first one that we're going to look at is capitalism. So you're probably quite familiar with this term. Capitalism means private ownership of the means of production. And the goal within capitalism is the pursuit of profit. The idea is that competition between people or groups of people who are looking for a profit will drive prices down for consumers so that consumers have the best possible product at the cheapest possible price. Now, there is no nation on the planet that is a purely capitalist society. There is not one that exists currently, and maybe not even in the past. People tend to think about the United States as a capitalist nation, which it is, but again, it is not purely capitalist. If the United States were purely capitalist, many things about how our society functions would be different. So the idea behind capitalism, again, is that the pursuit of profit by individuals, by owning natural resources, by owning the factories, spurs competition between them. And ultimately, the consumer is the winner in this scenario. Because as the people, the business owners are competing for the consumer's business, their quality of their products go up and the prices of those products go down, leaving the consumer as the winner. Some of the critiques about capitalism are that capitalism, by its nature, concentrates power and concentrates wealth into the hands of fewer and fewer people. We can see this manifested here in the United States when people talk about the income inequality and the wealth gap that exists between the very, very rich in our society and everyone else. When you have people like Jeff Bezos and Bill Gates and Elon Musk who are billionaires, and then you have people, the vast majority of people who are very, very, very far below that, a good number of which are reliant on government assistance in order to simply feed, clothe, and house themselves. So capitalism, by its nature, breeds inequality. It's one of its central functions and central features. It concentrates wealth and power into the hands of fewer and fewer people. In contrast to capitalism is an economic system called socialism. Now, socialism, its textbook definition means that that those natural resources and businesses and companies are publicly owned. This is the classic definition about socialism. A more contemporary definition about socialism, is that those means of production, the natural resources, are publicly funded. So not necessarily publicly owned, but publicly funded. So when you hear people talk about socialism today, normally they're not talking about the classic version of socialism, where the natural resources and factories are all government owned. Instead, they're talking about publicly funded things. And socialism has a really bad rap in the United States. It stems from the times during the Cold War when the United States and the Soviet Union existed as the two world powers. So people in the United States, especially those that were wealthy and powerful, were worried that the citizenry of the United States would look at the Soviet Union and see what they were doing over there and wonder, should we be doing some of that stuff here in the United States? So in order to combat that, there was a concentrated and persistent effort to demonize this concept of socialism. That's why so many people of a given age have such a negative view on socialism. They were taught and socialized this over decades of their life. Right, so when you hear the word socialism, in some people's minds, it conjures up people standing in line for bread, money not being worth anything, and a whole host of other negative connotations. And contemporary definition of socialism, again, has to do with publicly funding things. So even though socialism has a really bad rap, in the United States, United States people love socialism. They just don't know that the things that they love are socialist institutions, like our public parks. People love our public parks. Public parks are socialist institutions. Again, they are funded collectively by all of us with our taxes. Even if you don't go to the public park, if you don't use the public park, you help pay for that public park with your taxes. Our freeway system is a socialist institution that we can get on the highway in Chicago or Aurora, and we can drive across the country at high speeds to go somewhere else. And who maintains that highway? Who built it in the first place? Well, we all did, right? Or our parents did, or their parents did, through our taxes, right? So that's a socialist institution. We could also include on that list police departments, fire departments, libraries, snow plows and snow removal, right? There's tons and tons of things. Our military, right? All of these things are socialist institutions. And generally, Americans have very high favorability of these institutions. They just don't know that this is what socialism is and what socialism means. So it's a kind of interesting dynamic that occurs there, that many Americans tend to be so down on socialism, while at the same time really loving a lot of the benefits that socialism and socialist institutions bring. Okay, like with capitalism, there is no country on the planet that is a purely socialist nation, nor has there ever been. There have been some that have claimed to be, as previously mentioned, the Soviet Union. North Korea claims to be socialist. China claims to be socialist. None of these countries were socialist. If you look at Marx's evolution of a society towards socialism, all of these countries stopped before they got to the final step. So we've never seen a socialist country. Venezuela is one that's brought up currently a lot by detractors of socialism as an example of why socialism is bad. But Venezuela is not a socialist country. It is a military dictatorship. So we don't really have an example that we can point to in the present or in the past of a socialist country and how that works and why and what's good about it and what's bad. What we have are research and data and theory about how it might operate. Okay, when you look at many of the countries today, including the United States, what you have is not purely socialism, not purely capitalism, but some combination of these things. And depending on how much of each you have, capitalism and socialism, is going to have a lot to do with how the society looks. Now, the United States, as I mentioned before, does have some socialist institutions, but they are very few compared to other high-income, high-technology countries. In some of these other countries where you have much more socialism combined with their capitalism, we call these types of countries market socialist, welfare capitalist, or we've heard it mentioned here in the United States by some politicians in the United States as democratic socialism. So what this is a combination of capitalism and socialism. Again, the United States has this combination, but not enough of the socialism component to qualify it to be identified as one of these categories. Instead, we could look at the Netherlands, we could look at Sweden, and other high-income, wealthy, technologically advanced European nations that would be examples of market socialism or democratic socialism. The idea here is to give all the benefits that capitalism brings, which it does bring benefits, and the benefits that socialism brings, because it does bring benefits, and try to minimize the negative aspects of both. So like I said, within capitalism, it has a feature of capitalism is that it concentrates wealth and power into the hands of fewer and fewer people. So in a market socialist or democratic socialist society, that concentration of wealth and power is designed to be thwarted. So we have the competition, we have the advancement, but we don't have the ever-increasing concentration of wealth and power within the hands of fewer and fewer people. Likewise, with socialism, some of the negative aspects of socialism is that it can limit choices that people have. It can stifle competition and innovation. So in democratic socialism or welfare capitalism, again, the capitalist component is meant to thwart that negative aspect of socialism. Okay, so these are the three different economic systems that we look at in our class. Capitalism, socialism, and then the combination of those two, market socialism, welfare capitalism, democratic socialism, they're all interchangeable, and the different aspects of each. Okay, if you have any comments or questions, I'd appreciate to hear them. You can leave them in the section below, and there'll be additional videos on economics and politics.